Welcome to Rational Fans, Unfiltered and Uncut.
What's up, Rational Fans Nation?
Tom Brady is the system quarterback.
For the second week in a row, I've had three guys play on Monday night and Sunday night football, and they've all scored a combined 15 points.
Mason, no one cares about your fantasy football team. This is Rational Fans with the Z. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Rational Fans. That is Rational Fans with a Z. As always, I'm your host, Rhett Koblenz, joined by my buddies, Evan Kruger.
We're going to talk about baseball today. Here's a disclaimer. It's been a few months since I've talked about baseball in here, and I still know absolutely nothing, so ready yourself.
Nate Haynes.
What's up, Rational Fans Nation? And yeah, my baseball knowledge is kind of limited to when I played in second and third grade, so watch out.
And Mason Gray.
Let's start off the morning with a little debate here. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
All right, so we looked it up, and a sandwich, Mason was trying to go for this little loophole where in the definition of a sandwich it says that it is on a split roll. A hot dog bun is not a split roll. There needs to be a clear division between the top bun and the bottom bun in order for it to be a sandwich. There is no clear bifurcation between top bun and bottom bun on a hot dog.
So what you're telling me is if I make a hot dog, or like a brat, one of those big juicy brats, and I have some cheap Kroger hot dog bun, and it breaks in half, and I have to eat it like a sandwich, then it becomes a sandwich if the bun breaks in half?
Well, no, because also a hot dog, you can't pile toppings on a hot dog when you also eat it like a sandwich, because like all the ketchup and relish and stuff is just going to fall off of the hot dog, and there needs to be some sort of flat-ish surface in order for condiments and other toppings to rest on.
Well, then put them on first, and then put the hot dog on top of them, and then they'll stay in there.
You liberals, can't you just enjoy the hot dog for what it is? It's an individual. Come on. Really, Mason?
Yeah, whatever. I don't know. Okay, moving on to sports. Last night, the Blue Jays defeated the Baltimore Orioles 5-2 on Edwin Encarnacion's walk-off home run, meaning that the saga continues between the Blue Jays and the Rangers coming up in the ALDS. Hopefully, there's some more punches thrown, some more bats flipped. And I just don't know how that series is going to come out. It could either be a really messy series or it could be a really fun series to watch. I just hope it's a good one.
I think the Cubs are going to win that one, honestly. Yeah, that's who's going to win that series.
That just shows how bad his baseball knowledge is.
Well,
he's kidding, by the way.
I am kidding. I do know that there are teams that are not the Cubs. You know, I did watch a lot of Cubs baseball this year, and not to get completely off track, but it's going to be really sad when they get swept in the World Series, because that's exactly what's going to happen. And it could be to one of those two teams that you mentioned.
Yeah. You know, after Encarnacion hit that home run, I was really hoping he would have bat flipped like crazy and just like rubbed it in the Orioles' face from like last year after Jose Bautista did the insane bat flip. I was really hoping Encarnacion would do the crazy bat flip.
What are you talking about?
Remember Jose Bautista?
Yeah.
Is
but he's on the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did it against the Rangers.
Oh, either way.
The way you worded that was like...
Either way,
he kind of made it sound like a revenge bat flip.
No, either way, he did it in the playoffs last year and continue the tradition of bat flipping if you're the Blue Jays.
You know, if I had hit a walk-off home run, I'd probably just go hit the pitcher with a bat or something, assert my dominance over him.
Okay, so that brings up a good point. Last night, Buck Showalter, the Orioles manager, decides to bring in Ubaldo Jimenez, who has been their best pitcher in the month of September, but he leaves their all-star closer on the bench. Jimenez comes in, throws 5 pitches, and loses the game. There's been a lot of backlash at Showalter for making that decision, but there have been Orioles fans who have been okay with that decision because you can't say, well, if we would have brought in our closer, then he wouldn't have given up that home run, because you can't necessarily say that. You can't see what would have happened if you had made a decision differently. So I don't really know where I stand on that, because as a manager, you make the decision that you think is best, and then looking back on it, you might not think it was the best decision, but at the time, I think it was the right move for Showalter to make.
It probably was the right move there. Ubaldo Jimenez, I mean, he's a great pitcher, like you said. He had a fantastic September. There's really nothing you can do. It was a tight game. The Blue Jays pitching staff was absolutely great last night. They just gave up that 1-2 home run. I mean, other than that, there's really nothing you can do. Ubaldo Jimenez is a great pitcher, and
it's just like Uncle Rico. If they'd put him in the fourth quarter, they'd have won state, no doubt about it. I mean, that man can throw a football over a mountain. What are we talking about? All right, let's talk about sports now.
All right, okay. So, with the playoffs continuing tonight, San Francisco at the New York Mets, let's revisit our predictions, because if I remember correctly, we did some way 162 games ago, and none of us were even remotely close, because I think I had the Astros versus the Mets, and the Astros got third in the AL West, and then the Mets just barely snuck into the postseason. So, Mason, go ahead. Predictions.
I think I had the Blue Jays and the Mets.
Probably.
But I'm going Red Sox Cubs in this year's World Series. Gonna throw some baseball classics in there. I mean, Red Sox looked great all season. David Ortiz, final season. Be pretty awesome if Ortiz can ride off into the sunset like Peyton Manning did in the NFL. I'm going Red Sox over Cubs in 6 games.
Whoa.
I think the Indians are going to make the World Series as well, because I think Cleveland deserves 2 championships in 1 year. And they would win if it weren't for the fact that the Cubs haven't won in 100 years. So if fate's going to pick anybody, I think it'd be one of those 2 teams, probably the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah, I was actually going to say Cubs, Indians in the World Series, because a lot of people actually have the Red Sox winning the World Series, and that's who the Indians have first round. But I think that the way the Indians have played, they've kind of flied under the radar most of this season, and they haven't really been a big name as far as contenders for this year's World Series goes. So I think they're going to come out of nowhere and surprise a lot of teams, and people aren't going to see them coming. I think they're going to be able to get to the World Series. As far as winning the World Series, I don't know. The Cubs are just such a talented team. I don't know if anybody can beat them.
We can't forget, though, that this Cubs team, they lost one of their key players in the first week of the season. I can't remember exactly. Kyle Schwarber, yeah. If Kyle Schwarber was on this team, the team would just be that much better. He tore his ACL or did something to one of his.
I think he Teddy Bridgewatered himself.
Yeah, but this team would be that much greater if Kyle Schwarber was still around and was back on this team.
But would they really be that much greater? Because is Kyle Schwarber really that good?
Yes.
I mean, he's a good catcher, but the rest of the Cubs have done a good job filling in for him.
Who's Miguel Montero and David Ross, right?
Yeah.
That's fine. Those 2 are fine. What's wrong with them? And the Cubs, as it stands right now, they have a problem playing all the players that they want to anyway, because they have 9 spots on the field.
Well, in the All-Star game, the entire infield was Cubs players.
Well, yeah, but they have. Let's see. In their infield, it's typically Anthony Rizzo, Ben Zobrist, Javi Baez, or Russell at short, and then they'll put Brian at third and sometimes move him to the outfield if they need to. They just have a problem putting all their players in, and I don't know, honestly, if Kyle Schwarber was still here, I feel like it might make the Cubs worse, because you might have players who might feel, I don't know, cheated almost out of playing time. So I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with Mason, as always, but, Well, let's move on to football. We can agree about that a little bit better. Let's start off with some college football here. A lot of big things happened this weekend. Let's go ahead and start, since Evan's an IU fan, let's start with the epic failure of the Michigan State Spartans.
So a lot of people are going to say, and maybe rightly so, that this is just a fluke and that Michigan State lost this game. I honestly do think that the Indiana Hoosiers are a better team than the Michigan State Spartans. That's right, I said it. Indiana beat Michigan State because they are better. The advanced stats bear that out. Michigan State is not a good team this year. Their running attack is not what it used to be. Their quarterback can't throw the ball more than 5 yards down the field, and their offensive line just hasn't been up to the task. And if it wasn't for a few Hoosiers miscues late in the game, I think Indiana would have won this game by multiple touchdowns. And honestly, if they just hadn't choked against Wake Forest, they would probably be in the top 25 right now.
I was just going to say that the crazy thing about this game, Week 5 between Ohio State and Indiana, was if Indiana hadn't got beat by dismal Wake Forest, this could be a battle of the undefeateds. And possibly a top 25 battle, like you said.
I know Indiana has no shot at winning this game, but imagine how crazy college football would get if Indiana somehow pulled that off. I mean, I don't want to dream because it's not going to happen.
Don't talk like that.
I'm sorry.
Don't talk like that.
I forgot this is Hoosiers football. I mean, they're going to finish 6-6 and lose another bowl game. But hey, they're not Purdue. That's what I'm glad about.
Hear me out on this one, Evan. The IU Hoosiers are the Rams of the Big Ten. I mean, every time that someone in the Big Ten plays IU, they're like, oh, it's IU. They're okay. We'll kind of overlook them. But then come into the game, IU plays them really well. Even against Michigan State, they end up beating them. That's how it is the past 3 or 4 seasons. I mean, they've played Wisconsin, Michigan State, Ohio State all really well. I mean, a lot of overtime games, and they haven't been able to close out a lot of those games. Last year, they went 6-6. I mean,
I disagree with you because there's only one Rams, and that's the Los Angeles Rams. But also, this is a team progressing. I mean, it's not like the Rams who have been stuck in neutral since like 2002. I mean, this is a team that's really progressing. You go from losing big to losing close to winning big. And they're really trying to make that final step toward being a good, consistent team. Kevin Wilson's done a really good job of dragging this program out of the basement of the Big Ten, which is now occupied by Rutgers and Purdue and the likes of them. And Indiana is actually now a respectable team. And I don't think there's many teams that would enjoy having to go into Bloomington in order to get a win. Just like Michigan State had to, and they failed miserably. So I think Indiana, they're on their way. I mean, yeah, they'll probably finish 6-6 this year just because they play in the Big Ten East, which is like difficult compared to the Big Ten West. But they're on their way.
You know, I think that the Big Ten this year, it started off looking really good with Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State, all over there in the East looking pretty good. And I think that Michigan State's obviously been a huge disappointment. And I think Michigan has been kind of a letdown, too. A lot of people picked Michigan to be really, really good this season, including Mason. I don't get it. I don't understand Mason half the time. But nonetheless, people picked Michigan State to be good this season. And Michigan, I think they've underperformed so far this season. They just squeaked out a win against the Wisconsin team that's not as good as everyone thinks they are. And they just haven't looked very good when they've had the ball on offense. And their defense has been good, but their offense has just been shaky at best.
Good points. All right, so I'm just going to bring up another game. Louisville at Clemson. Wow.
Oh, my.
Holy cow. That was crazy. Clemson pulling that one off, 42-36. Lamar Jackson, Louisville's quarterback, had, 2,000 yards or something in that game? It was ridiculous. It was really fun to watch. I thought Louisville was going to pull it off in the end, but Deshaun Watson's star power ended up winning Clemson the game in the end. At least that's what ESPN will say.
You know, coming into this game, a lot of people were kind of iffy on Clemson. I mean, everybody thought they were going to be basically national title contenders preseason. Then they kind of stumbled in the early season, and early in the season, they won by 6 points against Auburn. Then they won a close game against Troy, I think. And nobody was really sure what to expect of them. But I think that big win over Louisville is exactly what Clemson needed to really turn their season around. And they could potentially go undefeated, and they really hold their destiny for the national title.
And once again, I think that they beat Louisville, a team called Louisville, not Louisville. That was an entertaining game. I went to bed at halftime, and it was 28-10. Waking up in the morning and finding out that Louisville was a fourth down conversion away from possibly winning that game, I was completely shocked. I mean, I don't think you can completely take Lamar Jackson out of the Heisman discussion. I mean, I don't think this game proves anything about how good either quarterback is, because Deshaun Watson, remember, he turned the ball over, was it 3 times?
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't have the greatest game. And I still feel like Deshaun Watson, while he's a lot more experienced and he can probably get his team the win better than Lamar Jackson can, I still feel like Lamar Jackson is a much more prolific quarterback, much more exciting to watch.
Well, I mean, Lamar Jackson still has a ridiculous amount of touchdowns on the season. Against Clemson, even though he had a pedestrian game by Lamar Jackson standards, he still ended up with 2 rushing touchdowns and a passing touchdown. So he still added 3 to his total, putting him at 28, I think, on the season through 5 games. They've played 5, yeah. 5 games, 28 touchdowns. You can't say that Lamar Jackson is not the Heisman frontrunner at this point. Even after throwing a pick, you still can't say that he's not the Heisman frontrunner because he is. Nobody has numbers even close to his.
Yeah, and the thing about Louisville is that they're yeah, that's right, Mason. Their season isn't over yet. The thing is, they just got to win out at this point because there's plenty of football left to play, and top teams lose to not top teams all the time. And yeah, just keep winning, Louisville, and I think you'll still make the playoffs, or at least have a good shot at it.
They have a matchup with the potential undefeated Houston team way later on in the season, and if they can get that win against an undefeated Houston team, then that could be all that they need to jump right back into the top 4 late season, barring someone loses a close matchup. I mean, Michigan and Ohio State play late in the season.
Last game
of the season, and you know in college football, if you're going to lose, you want to lose early so you can work your way back up. But one of those teams is going to lose and probably get knocked out of the playoff contention, and Louisville can jump right back in there.
It's hard when talking about the college football playoff still this early in the season is that we don't know what the surrounding circumstances are going to be for all of these teams, because whether or not a one-loss ACC champion team can make it to the college football playoff is really contingent on how everybody else is doing. If there are 4 other undefeated teams or more qualified teams, obviously they're going to get in and Louisville won't. So it's kind of hard to say right now if they can. I mean, hypothetically, yes, they can, but how attractive really is a one-loss ACC team? I mean, not very.
Well, if you think about it, the ACC standings in the Atlantic, you got Clemson, and then North Carolina State's in second, followed by Louisville, Wake Forest, Syracuse, Florida State, who has just been absolutely terrible this season. It's a shame, in my opinion, that Louisville and Clemson are on the same side, because if not, we could have seen a rematch in the championship game between those 2 teams, and that would have been amazing. But the way it stands, we're either going to see Miami, who is just not they just don't have the same talent that they used to have in the early 2000s, or North Carolina, who I just think is not a very good football team. They've got 4 straight wins after losing to Georgia, but I think it's going to be Clemson coming out of the ACC again with the championship there. But does the committee really want to put Clemson in after the pedestrian start to the season they had and they just squeak one out? It's really going to determine what's really going to determine if Clemson makes the playoff is how they play within the next couple games here, if they can get wins against some of those lower level ACC teams.
So another notable game from last weekend was Washington versus Stanford. We all expected this to be a huge matchup. Then Washington comes out and gives the Stanford Cardinal the old Louisville, Florida State treatment, 44-6. This game wasn't close from the beginning.
Nope.
I mean, Stanford didn't score until the 3rd quarter. They were just completely pedestrian, abysmal, whatever you want to call it. They were bad, and Washington looked really, really good. What do you think about the chances of an undefeated Washington team getting into the college football playoff?
I like them. I like Washington's chances. They got an impressive win over Stanford. I think Stanford, they're a decent team this season. Christian McCaffrey's an absolute animal. I think if Washington can win the Pac-12, then that's the best chance the Pac-12 has to get one in, because with that loss to Stanford, Stanford's not going to make it. They have nobody else. Is Washington the last undefeated team, I think, from the Pac-12?
Yeah.
So they're the last chance that the Pac-12 has. The Pac-12, if they want a shot, they cannot destroy themselves. Like we've seen the SEC do it a couple of times. The SEC is just eating themselves up. If Washington comes out undefeated, wins the Pac-12, I think that they're going to get in because they'll have that resume. They got to beat Oregon this week. They haven't beat Oregon in 12 years. It's ridiculous. They haven't beat Oregon in forever. But if they can win out and win the Pac-12, then they're in the playoff, in my opinion.
Well, the thing about Washington is that they're an all-around solid team. It's not like they're totally relying on their offense. They've got a pretty darn good defense, too. And if their defense continues to show up, then, yeah, I think they have a great shot at making the playoffs. So that'll be interesting to watch.
Coming into the season, Christian McCaffrey was probably top 3 in the Heisman candidacy. Now, he's not, I wouldn't even put him in the top 5. Last season, he was a workhorse running back in Stanford, but a lot of that had to do with Kevin Hogan being their starting quarterback. When you don't have a good starting quarterback, I mean, you see it with the Rams this season. Teams are going to stack 7 or 8 in the box, and you're just going to get bottled up in the backfield, and you're going to get 2 yards on a run. I mean, with Hogan, he could spread the ball around, open up the field for McCaffrey, and McCaffrey would break off some huge runs, but he's obviously not doing that this season.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'd probably say that McCaffrey's Heisman is out the window now.
Yeah, me too.
It's too bad because he's a great player, and he's probably end up going to drop into the second round of the NFL draft because football. Why? I don't know, but a lot of times prospects, just their draft order a lot of times is determined on their team's success. Why? I don't know. It's stupid, but that's life.
You know where I think he would fit pretty well, actually? I think, tell me if I'm wrong, Evan, I think he would fit with the Colts.
Well, I mean, he's certainly an upgrade. I mean, from going to Trent Richardson, who sucks, to Frank Gore, who's old and decrepit, and we consider 82 yards a good game. I mean, yeah, I think Christian McCaffrey would be a good fit. I mean, he's athletic. He's very versatile. He can do a lot of different things. I think that he would be a great weapon for Andrew Luck out of the backfield, not just running the ball, catching the ball. Don't put him on special teams because he'll get killed.
Yeah.
But I agree. He'd be a good fit. But, Jim Irsay is going to draft probably another wide receiver that runs a 4.1 40 or something like that and has hands made out of bricks.
Another huge game this weekend. Probably my favorite game to watch because I went to bed during the Louisville-Clemson one. Georgia versus Tennessee. What a game. Oh, my goodness. 2 touchdowns within, 10 seconds of each other. It was ridiculous. That was the craziest finish I've seen this season.
Georgia pretty much gave that game away, it seemed like, because Tennessee shouldn't have even been in position to win that game. I mean, there was a kickoff with, 15 seconds left. Georgia can't recover it, or they can't cover the kick. Tennessee returns it 40 yards, and then you have a flag on Georgia, which gets the ball up to, what was it, the 45-yard line?
They had one of their players took a helmet off after they scored the touchdown, so they got a 15-yard to back them up, and then they pooched it for some reason, and then the dude made a really nice return, 30 yards, then a 5-yard penalty, put Tennessee in Georgia territory for a Hail Mary, and that was...
I don't want to take anything away from that play because it was absolutely incredible. But I feel like Tennessee is just really masking a lot of their shortcomings. You can do this against Georgia. You can't do it against Alabama. You probably can't even do it against Arkansas or Texas A&M.
They have a Texas A&M this week. It's a top 10 matchup.
That's going to be a really good game. And I just don't feel like Tennessee's really as good as their record and their ranking shows. They have a lot of deficiencies that have been masked by Josh Dobbs, almost exclusively Josh Dobbs.
Well, they have Texas A&M this week, and then they have Alabama next week. So if they can get through Texas A&M, I don't know if they can get past Alabama, but Tennessee at this point is probably the best bet to keep Alabama out of the playoff. But for some reason, if Alabama gets one loss and somehow wins the SEC, they'll still get put in. I don't know. Mason, you got something to say. Go ahead.
With Tennessee playing Alabama, obviously every loss counts in college football, but losing to Alabama might not be the worst possible thing. I mean, they're in separate divisions of the SEC, and they're more than likely going to meet up in the SEC championship game. I mean, Georgia's not going to get there. Florida's not going to get there. So it's going to be Tennessee. And if Alabama goes undefeated, they're going to meet up in the SEC championship game, and Tennessee's going to get a shot at revenge. And if they can knock them off there, I'd much rather win in the SEC championship game than in the regular season.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll pose the question to you guys. So the top 4 currently in the AP is Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and Michigan, followed by Washington, Houston, and Louisville. Say Alabama wins out, wins the SEC championship, they're in. Ohio State wins out, wins the Big Ten championship, they're in. Clemson wins out, they're in. Michigan has one loss, they're not in. Say Washington is undefeated and Houston is undefeated. So you've got Bama, Ohio State, Clemson, and it comes down to Washington and Houston. Who do you put in?
Washington, because they're a Power 5 team. You know, there's drawbacks to being in the American Conference, and that is that you don't get the benefit of the doubt of being from a Power 5 conference. I really do think the committee would put Washington in over Houston. But on second thought, a Houston team with a win over Louisville, because you're saying that they're both undefeated, that would be pretty impressive. I can't say for sure what the committee would do, but I think that they would give it to Washington just because they're from the Pac-12.
With Houston, the playoff committee really rewards going out and scheduling tough opponents. I mean, obviously they play in the American Conference, so they're not going to get a lot of tough conference matchups. But they went out, they scheduled Oklahoma, they scheduled Louisville, and if they can beat both
Louisville,
if they can beat both of those teams, Houston really put themselves to the test in the non-conference, and I think they should get rewarded for that.
You know, this is an interesting season because we could possibly see 4 undefeated teams squaring off in the playoff. And I think what you're going to have to do to get in the playoff is win out. That's the best way to take care of business, is win out and then make them put you in the playoff because, you know, we've seen it. With Ohio State, the year they won the national championship, they lost the game, but it really didn't feel like they came in as a 4 seed, and there was kind of a little bit of debate with that. If you take care of business and win out, you force the committee to put you in, and then you get rid of any debate, and we could see 4 undefeated teams in the playoff, which I think that'd be an awesome playoff. 4 teams trying to go undefeated, and then an undefeated national championship game. That would just be great to watch. Let's move on to the NFL. Let's get it started with everyone's favorite segment, Colts Suck segment. Evan, get us going.
I don't even know what to say at this point. I don't even know if I have enough energy to rant about the Colts anymore. My opinion even matters. But their performance in London was just absolutely disgusting. They can't protect Andrew Luck worth anything. He got sacked 6 times. Their defense wasn't very good. They gave up 3 touchdowns to the Jaguars, a team that had yet to win a game. At what point do we start blaming Andrew Luck? Because we keep babying him. We'll blame Ryan Grigson, rightly so, because he sucks. We'll blame Chuck Pagano. We'll blame the defense. We'll blame the offensive line. But I heard somebody on ESPN yesterday say something that I realized, you know what, that's true. Andrew Luck hasn't progressed since he's gotten into the NFL. He's been the same quarterback. He's the same quarterback now that he was back in 2012. And at what point do you start blaming Andrew Luck for not getting better? I think as Colts fans, we need to start accepting the fact that that Andrew Luck is not going to be Peyton Manning. He's not going to be one of the greatest of all time. He's not going to be a transcendently great quarterback. He's just going to be good, and that's about it. So at what point do we start recognizing that? And at what point does the coaching staff start recognizing that and understanding that paying Andrew Luck $140 million isn't going to solve any of the other problems on this team and probably doesn't make them any better at all?
But the question I pose to you is how much of Andrew Luck's lack of development, how much of that is his fault?
It's not like Andrew Luck doesn't have a great work ethic. He has a fantastic work ethic. I know he wants to get better. He is dedicated to this team, but in spite of everything, he hasn't progressed. I don't understand why he's not better. He should be a lot better than this. Remember last year when we were talking about how he made it to the wild card his first year, divisional second year, the AFC Championship his third year, so his fourth year. Obviously, he's going to get to the Super Bowl. That seems like the logical progression for Andrew Luck. But instead, he has this abysmal performance and gets hurt. And I feel like he's kind of running in place on a team that's not doing him any favors by putting anybody around him. It's just bad. Come on, Ryan Grigson. If you're listening, just quit your job.
Do you think the Colts are wasting Andrew Luck's talent?
Oh, definitely.
Yes, of course. I said that last week.
Yeah, they are.
course they're wasting his talent.
They're running him into the ground. They're making him do every single thing on the team. I'll be honest, he's the only reason that they have one win on the season because, their defense did make a stop in that game, so I can't say he's the only reason. But Andrew Luck, him and T.Y. Hilton, they're about the only players on the team that I would say are top-tier NFL players. And you can't win a lot of games if you only have two top-tier NFL players. You just cannot win if you don't have the right pieces in place. And that's where the Colts are at right now. They don't have anything to help Andrew Luck out. And like Evan said, he's not Peyton Manning, and he can't win with garbage cans protecting him on the line of scrimmage. Colts got to fix something, or else Andrew Luck is going to want out of Indy.
Well, yeah, I do agree with that. I think the Colts' biggest enemy right now is themselves. The thing that makes them the reason why they're losing these games is because they lack consistency. They'll start off poorly, and then their offense will dig themselves out of the 21-point hole or whatever they dig themselves into, and they may even have a lead in the fourth quarter. Then their defense will blow it. The Colts really do need to build up this roster, but until then, yeah, we're gonna continue to see these lackluster games from them. I don't think they're as far off as some people think they are, but yeah, they really do have to rebuild the roster.
I don't watch many Colts games, so I don't really know what's going on with the Colts, but why did the Colts cut C.O. Moore? C.O. Moore is their leading tackler this season.
He couldn't tackle my grandmother. That's probably why. Maybe he's their leading tackler. But if you actually watch Colts games, you'll see him miss tackle after tackle after tackle. He is a terrible player. Why the Colts signed him in the first place, I don't know.
No idea.
But I do wonder who they have that they think is better. Because, they have DeQuell Jackson. He's like their only good defensive player. Then they cut Antonio Cromartie, who I know he's not good, but is he really that much worse than any of the other Colts cornerbacks?
Bring back Bob Sanders.
We need Bill Polian, get him a jersey, put him in the secondary. That's going to solve the Colts' problems.
So, all right, last question about the Colts suck segment. They're about let's say, missed the playoffs, 13th, 14th pick in the draft. What are they going to do with the first round?
Well,
what should they do? Not what will they do?
Well, they're going to pick a wide receiver because Jim Irsay, he's probably going to be drunk picking or whatever it is that he does. But I think they need pass rushing. I mean, when Peyton Manning was quarterback, maybe they didn't have the best run defense, but when you had Dwight Freeney and Robert Mathis coming after you on third down and long, that was enough to send a lot of opposing quarterbacks running scared. They need to get some pass rushers. Like Bjorn Warner, is he even still on the team? Robert Mathis is just washed up. They need pass rushing. If they can get to the cornerback, that's going to help their secondary out a lot. So I think they should go outside linebacker, defensive end, something like that, to help them get some pressure on opposing quarterbacks.
It makes it so much easier on your defense when you're rushing quarterbacks into throws because we saw it when they got beat by the Lions. Matthew Stafford had 39 seconds to get down the field and get a field goal, and there was no pressure on that drive whatsoever. Granted, they were dropping a lot of guys back in coverage, but Matthew Stafford had 5 seconds to get rid of the ball every time. And when you give a quarterback, even a moderately decent quarterback, that much time to throw the ball, he's going to burn you every single time. That's just my take on the Colts suck. Moving on to the real NFL. This season has been pretty surprising in my opinion. You got the Broncos undefeated, the Vikings undefeated, and then there's one more, right?
Eagles.
They're
on a bye this week. So.
Well, how are the Eagles and the Vikings undefeated? Let's talk about that for a second. Nate, you're a Vikings fan. Kick us off here.
Well, the crazy thing is that this all happened before the season even started. If the Eagles wouldn't have traded Sam Bradford to the Vikings definitely wouldn't be undefeated, and the Eagles probably wouldn't be undefeated either because, just in my opinion, Carson Wentz is a better quarterback than Sam Bradford, or at least he's shown that he's a better quarterback so far, and he just fits Philadelphia's system better than a lot of people have in the past, and it's pretty shocking. I didn't expect the Vikings to beat the Packers, to be completely honest, or the Panthers.
I would like to point out that the Panthers have the same record as the Colts and the Bears.
That is not good.
No. All right, continue. Sorry.
No, it's fine. Anyway, just looking down the road here a little. In 3 weeks, the Vikings are at Philadelphia, so that'll be a pretty good matchup. And yeah, we'll have to see how the season plays out. I'm really excited.
Do you think both of those teams could be undefeated for that Week 7 matchup, the Eagles and the Vikings?
I could see the Eagles because they have the Lions this week and then the Redskins next week. But the Vikings...
No, the Vikings, they have Houston, which they'll probably win. It's at Minnesota, too. And then they have a bye. So they better, they better win the bye.
That'd be the ultimate.
But anyway, even the Vikings and Eagles are both playing pretty well right now. But, man, the Broncos, they're just on another level.
Their defense.
The Vikings' defense is...
Oh, yeah.
I'll throw the word out there, elite. But... the Broncos' defense is elite. Like,
they're elite.
85 Bears elite. It's absurd.
They're really good.
And a lot of that has to do with just their pass rush and Von Miller constantly getting to the quarterback. And their secondary, like we said, with any good defense, just eats off that. And
pass rush?
Pass rush. And if they continue that formula, then they're set. I honestly, at this point, I think the Super Bowl is going to the Denver Broncos. I'm going to be completely honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'm a biased Vikings fan.
That's true.
I'm more realistic though than some people. Panthers.
Guys, the Panthers are going to win the Super Bowl. I do think that's a fair assessment. The Broncos, their defense, just incredible. Ryan Grigson, take notes. Pay great pass rushers $140 million, not your quarterback $140 million. And let's draft some more wide receivers. With the Eagles, I think it's still too early to be able to tell whether or not they're actually a good team or whether or not they've gotten lucky that Carson Wentz hasn't choked yet. It's coming. It will happen. Same with Dak Prescott. It happens to every rookie quarterback. At some point, they have a really bad game. It just depends on when it is. I think the Eagles are definitely improved. Just getting rid of Chip Kelly was enough to make them that much better. You say that they have a quarterback that fits their system well. Well, they finally have a system that actually works in the NFL now. So I think that's a big reason why Philadelphia has been so successful this year.
With the AFC, though, we can't just go ahead and crown the Denver Broncos the AFC champions.
Yes, we can. Shut up.
This is Rational Fans Unfiltered and Uncut. We can do whatever the heck we want.
We don't know what's going to happen with the New England Patriots.
As Evan groans in the background.
Obviously they had that bad loss against the Buffalo Bills, but Brissett was hurt and Garoppolo was hurt, and they started out 3-0 with Brissett and Garoppolo, and Brady's coming back off his 4-game suspension. We have no idea how he's going to play. He could be playing like a 50-year-old man, or he could play like a 25-year-old superstar.
It doesn't matter how Tom Brady plays. The Panthers. The Panthers' defense is terrible. -19 fantasy points is awful. Excuse me. The Broncos' defense is going to wreck Tom Brady when they play each other in the AFC Championship, no matter what. It doesn't matter what Tom Brady does because the Broncos' defense is that much better than anybody that they're going to play, Mason.
We haven't seen Gronk get involved, and if Tom Brady and Gronk get connected, they can really get things going. Rhett, you're just a Colts fan. You're a...
What? No, Mason. Mason.
No. What do the Colts have to do with anything?
Shut up. Okay, Mason, this is a game of ifs right now. You're saying if Tom Brady is ultra elite this year, if Gronk returns, if the Patriots defense does this, if blah blah blah, if the Broncos quit existing. No, that's just not realistic, Mason. You can't play that card. No. The Patriots have not proven that they can beat the Broncos yet. And until they do, I'm crowning the Broncos at least AFC championship game winners.
If Trevor Siemian continues to play half decent football, like he's actually been pretty impressive so far this season, I'll give him that. If he continues to play like that, there's no way the Patriots can beat the Broncos. I don't care what team you like. Nate is a Vikings fan, and he's claiming that the Broncos defense is elite.
Did you just pull the Homer card on us? Mason,
Of
you
all
don't
people.
get to do that. I mean, maybe we are Colts fans, but everybody in the world hates the New England Patriots. They are a blight on society.
Last year, when we all agreed that the Panthers were going to win the Super Bowl. Nick said the Broncos were going to. We feel like fools now because the Broncos won that Super Bowl impressively because of what? Their defense. Peyton Manning was in that game. All right, he had a couple touchdown passes, but he was okay at best in that game.
He had 0.
Oh, he did?
He had that 2-point conversion.
Oh, you're right. No touchdowns. The Panthers' defense hasn't gotten any worse since last season. It might have gotten better. So are you telling me that Tom Brady is that much better than Cam Newton, that he can beat the Broncos' defense, and Cam Newton could not? Cam Newton couldn't even recover a fumble against the Broncos' defense, all right? Sit down.
Get you
shut
some
up.
of that, Mason.
You can give the mic to Nate, and you can go sit in the corner with your tail between your legs.
In all reality, if we're going to be completely honest, I do think that the New England Patriots, they're definitely the second best team in the AFC.
To who? The Broncos.
The Broncos. I mean, the Broncos have had Tom Brady's number since they've kind of accumulated all of this defensive talent. That is enough to beat the New England Patriots. Even if Gronk does get going, I still think that the Broncos will have enough in order to beat the Patriots in another AFC championship game. I hate the Patriots. The Patriots are evil.
I'm going to throw one more team out there. How about the Pittsburgh Steelers?
No.
Just hear me out on this one. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown, one of the top 3 quarterback-receiver combos. Le'Veon Bell coming off his 3-game suspension. Looked like potentially the best running back in all of the NFL. He had like 17 carries, like 14 carries for like 170 yards. Coming off his knee injury from last season, he had that big game, and he didn't get that many touches, and the Steelers' offense is looking pretty good.
Not last week against Philadelphia. They look like a dumpster fire.
Well, Mason's going to come back with the argument that Le'Veon Bell didn't play in that one, huh?
Oh, you're right. Le'Veon Bell accounted for 31 points. My bad. No, the thing, I want to wait on Pittsburgh and see if they actually show some consistency. If they do, then yeah, they might be able to. In fact, I would say that at this point, Pittsburgh's. Well, if they show consistency, I would say that they're a better team than actually New England is. And actually, I believe New England in a couple weeks plays Pittsburgh at Pittsburgh, so that'll be a really fun matchup. But yeah, we'll have to wait on the AFC and the NFC and the rest of the NFL.
I was just going to ask. Let's talk about the NFC. Who's going to win the NFC? There hasn't really been a team that's been a clear-cut favorite from the NFC. Who's it gonna be?
The Dallas Cowboys. No, I don't.
All right,
that at all.
Skip.
Yeah, I think that at this point, the Seahawks, they've really kind of solved some of their offensive woes, and they still have a very good defense. I'm not going to say that the Legion of Boom is back because it is not, and it never will be. But I think
was a
right
good
now,
defense.
That was almost as good as the Broncos' defense, and I think that right now they're probably the favorites in the NFC. I mean, what's happening to the Panthers, Mason? What is going on in Carolina? They're the defending NFC champions. How do they give up 48 points to the Atlanta Falcons? I mean, they have Matt Ryan and one offensive weapon.
I don't really know what's going on in Carolina. I mean, got a lot of things to work on, but
Gotta go back and watch the tape, right, Mason?
Okay, so let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys for a second. Evan jokingly said that they would make it to the Super Bowl. If they continue playing like this, do they actually have a shot if they don't start Tony Romo?
Well, here's the thing. Dak Prescott, he hasn't really impressed me that much. As much as the media hyped him this offseason, really, Dak, he's kind of just a dink and dunk quarterback. He really doesn't launch the ball down the field like a lot of people thought he would, or like Tony Romo has been in the past in Dallas. And honestly, I'm not that big of a believer in Dallas. Their defense is subpar, and their offense really it's not that explosive. And I think they have kind of lucked out by playing teams like the Redskins and such over the last couple weeks. And I would like to see them play some tougher opponents here.
looking at another NFC East team, the New York Giants, what is happening to Odell Beckham Jr.? There was a quote from when he first started playing football, and it goes along the lines of, the moment that I stop having fun playing football, I'm done.
Yeah.
And then this past week,
I remember that.
he's like, I'm not having fun playing football anymore. Odell Beckham is going to retire.
He has nobody to blame but himself for this situation, though. You know, I heard on Mike and Mike this morning, and I wanted to bring it up, and I'm glad that you got to that, Mason. Good job. You didn't redeem yourself. Never mind. But he's brought this on himself. He's totally brought this on himself. He's tried to push the blame on other people like the media. He's blaming the media for the Josh Norman situation, that they keep hashing it over and bringing it up. It's his own fault. He's blaming the media for everything that's going wrong in this situation when it's his own fault for being a baby, going on the sidelines, throwing tantrums, getting hit in the head by a kicking net. He can't even beat a kicking net at this point in his career. It's just a mess for Odell Beckham. And even when Eli Manning, who is probably the most mild-mannered quarterback, with the exception of Andrew Luck, I would say, says something and calls you out, then you're doing something wrong if you're getting Eli Manning to call you out.
I have one word for Odell Beckham. Diva.
He might be a bigger diva than Des Bryant and Terrell Owens.
Okay, maybe not yet, but he's getting there.
Yeah. Okay.
He's getting there.
Yeah.
He's saying it's all about me. It's kind of like you see a lot with the NBA players trying to build up their brand. Pretty soon he'll probably come out with his own line of cleats or something stupid like that. And maybe we're witnessing the meltdown of Odell Beckham Jr.
Here's the thing about Odell. He has a lot of emotion, which is great to have for a football player. A football player, I think, makes or breaks a career by the amount of emotion they show. Take Cam Newton last year, for example. Plays with a lot of heart, plays with a lot of emotion. He's very outgoing, and it works for him. MVP gets that award largely in part due to his personality. I'll give him that. Good quarterback, but he isn't at the point of his emotion where he lets that control him. He is in control of his emotion. And the point that Odell Beckham is sitting at right now, he's letting his emotions control him, and he's not using his best judgment in situations like this. And that makes him look really bad. It makes the Giants look bad. It makes the Giants coach look bad because he's not handling Odell Beckham in the way he should. I honestly think that he's kind of afraid to touch Odell Beckham because of the superstar that Odell Beckham has become. And at this point, something needs to be done about Odell Beckham within the Giants organization.
You bring up Cam Newton, and I think that's a good example that maybe Odell Beckham Jr. could look to, because we've seen Cam Newton mature. I mean, he's gone from, suggestion box, whiny Cam Newton to a guy that's really become a leader. Yeah, he kind of broke down after the Super Bowl, walking out on that press conference.
Yeah, but can you blame
that's
him?
One gaffe.
Right.
Yeah, that's one gaffe, and he's really shown a lot of maturity. Odell Beckham Jr., he's selfish, but every wide receiver is selfish. I think that the best word to describe him is immature. He's immature right now. If he can master his emotions, he has the talent to be the best receiver in the NFL. He has that kind of talent. He can do it. He just has to learn to master his emotions, mature and grow, and then he'll perform great on the field. Because that's all the Giants want from him. Perform great on the field. I mean, you can smash all the helmets you want on the sideline. Just perform well on the field.
There was that one series against the Vikings where Beckham just looked absolutely terrible. There was that one where he got called for the unnecessary roughness penalty or something along the sidelines. And then the next play, he caught the ball and then basically went into the hit against the Vikings. And there could have even been a potential unnecessary roughness penalty there and a couple more times in the game. And he claims that the refs are targeting him for unnecessary roughness penalties.
He said something the other day about I could lace up my cleats wrong and I'd get a flag thrown. They're watching me so much, but that is not true. Superstars, they get the benefit of the doubt most of the time. If you think about it, how many times have we seen a questionable call go in favor of Tom Brady or Ben Roethlisberger or Peyton Manning or LeBron? Yeah, we're not talking about the NBA, but yeah, that's a good point. Superstars get the calls, and Odell Beckham needs to shut his mouth and play football.
Well, just one quick point, too. I think teams are really starting to figure out Odell because if you get in his head, you're going to stop him. And, Mike Zimmer was a genius on Monday night. He just stuck Xavier Rhodes, who, by the way, is a pretty darn good cornerback, on Odell the whole night, got chippy with him, frustrated him, and Odell took himself out of the game. It's really not that hard, and Odell just needs to control his emotions. Otherwise, it's a train wreck.
It already is a train wreck, but it could just get worse and worse and worse as we progress here. You guys got anything to say about this before we move on?
At least I don't have Odell on my fantasy team.
Me neither.
He's gonna turn it. I don't care anymore.
Wait, is he on yours?
Yes.
Oh,
he was my set. He was my first overall pick. I picked
yeah,
him
it's okay. DeAndre Hopkins, I picked him first round, and he hasn't done anything. So.
I mean, Odell had 3.5 points against the Vikings.
So it's still really, really, really early in the season, but let's talk a little bit about awards. Let's start off with Defensive Rookie of the Year. This is a tough one.
I have no idea. I don't know about any defensive rookies.
Hey,
I have no clue.
I honestly have no idea on either.
Okay, well then let's start with offensive. Let's go there.
Okay, I think that the award goes to Ezekiel Elliott. I think that he's been really the driving force behind the Cowboys. I've been more impressed with Ezekiel Elliott than I have Dak Prescott. I think that he deserves the award. He had a really good game against the 49ers, and I think he's just going to keep progressing really nicely throughout the season.
It's really a toss-up between Carson Wentz and Ezekiel Elliott. Ezekiel Elliott actually leads the NFL in yards, and he's a great running back, but Carson Wentz has the Eagles off to a 3-0 start, and everybody knows that if you're good, a lot of the credit's going to the quarterback, and vice versa. If you're terrible, a lot of the blame goes to the quarterback. And so Carson Wentz is really leading this Eagles team pretty far.
Yeah, I'd probably have to go with the Carson Wentz argument for Offensive Rookie of the Year, just because, a lot of times the award just goes to the quarterback on offense or the running back. I could see you going with Ezekiel Elliott. For Defensive Rookie of the Year, I kind of don't know either, just because, and I'm like an NFL draft expert. What the heck, Nate? Because all the defensive rookies have kind of sucked this year. If anything, I'd probably go with Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
From Jacksonville. He's been playing, everyone else too.
All right, Jalen Ramsey. That's a unanimous decision for Defensive Rookie of the Year. All right, good job, guys. Offensive Rookie of the Year, I'm going to go with Zeke. He has been pretty much everything that people thought he would be. He's been solid. I think he'll get Rookie of the Year because he's playing some really good football. The Cowboys' offensive line hasn't even been the best that we've seen them, and that's kind of what they pride themselves on. And yet he still is produced at a high level. So I'm going to go with Zeke Elliott. It's just weird not seeing him in Ohio State jersey. Like, that's just weird for me, but, whatever. So moving on to some more awards. Defensive Player of the Year. Because presumably it would have been J.J. Watt, but now he's hurt and he could be out for an extended period of time. So now who do we look at?
Von Miller. He's the best defensive player in the league, and he's performed outstanding so far this year, and he's just going to keep playing awesome.
Could we see Von Miller win the MVP award?
No, because he's not a quarterback.
But who are they going to give it to? Which quarterback has played MVP worthy so far?
Matt Ryan.
Well, okay, maybe, but he's on the Falcons.
Dak Prescott.
No. Has an MVP ever been given to a rookie? I doubt it.
I don't think so.
I doubt it. There's no way that an MVP would ever win a rookie award just because people are like, well, you can't give it to a rookie. You got more seasoned veterans. Like, you could have said Tom Brady, but he's missed 4 games, so no. Unless he comes out and, in 12 games, throws, 50 touchdown passes, maybe. But I don't know. This is a really interesting season because last year you looked at Cam Newton and you're like, oh, yeah, he's going to win the MVP and you knew that from the very beginning. But right now you're like, who's going to win it? There's no clear front runner, and it's going to be interesting just to see how everything shapes up the rest of the season.
Yeah, even all the veteran quarterbacks who are usually in the run for MVP have kind of sucked. At this point, I don't know. I would maybe even say Ben Roethlisberger, just because he's the biggest name and he's performing the best. I don't know. I'd probably go with Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, maybe.
The quarter season MVP is probably Matt Ryan or Julio Jones, but we all know that the Falcons start off hot and then they just fall and fall and fall like they did last season. What did they start like 7-0, 6-0?
I think it's 6-0.
Yeah.
And they went like
they
went 8-8,
I think.
8-8.
Yeah.
I mean, same thing's probably going to happen this season.
Yeah, but I think the Falcons, they're kind of stuck in mediocrity, but the rest of the NFC South is too, because I don't think the Panthers are very good this season. I don't know what's different from last year's team. Mason, you're the Panthers fan. Maybe you can tell me, but I just don't think they're anywhere as close to as good as what they were last year.
So anyway, looking forward to next week, and we have a couple good matchups here. The one I'm really looking forward to is Falcons at Broncos. That'll be interesting to see if. Well, it's kind of a test and a prove it game almost for Matt Ryan. It's just how good are you, and if Aqib Talib or Chris Harris Jr., whoever they put on Julio Jones, if he gets shut down, can Matt Ryan spread the ball around, and can he dissect Denver's defense like so few have done?
You know, I'll be honest. I don't think I can even name another wide receiver on the Falcons team.
Mohamed Sanu.
I didn't
Justin
know he was
Hardy.
there.
What?
Jacob Tammy still plays for him, right? But he's not a
Yes.
receiver. Yeah, okay. But yeah, that's a really good matchup. You'll see Matt Ryan and the Falcons, who Julio Jones absolutely torched the Panthers, and the Falcons torched the Panthers. That's why I got negative 19 points in fantasy football. But I'm not Mason, so I don't rant about stuff like that. But the Broncos defense has a tough task ahead of them. We'll see if they're up to it. It's going to be a really good game to watch this weekend.
If we're going inverse, a game that nobody wants to watch, Bears-Colts. That is going to be an historically bad game. Make sure that you tune in to whatever channel is not showing that game. It is going to be bad. I'm going to warn you. Brian Hoyer versus the Indianapolis Colts. It's bad. Don't watch it.
It's kind of like when I went to a Colts game last year. They were playing the Texans. It was Matt Hasselbeck versus I don't even remember who the starting quarterback last year
Brian
in that
Hoyer.
game was. Yeah, it was Hoyer, but Hoyer got hurt, and their backup came in, and their backup beat the Colts. I don't even remember who their backup was. That's how bad it was. It was just not a good situation, and that's what this game is going to be like. This is just dumpster fire football.
We have a few questions from fans about
Wait,
fantasy.
do we really?
Yeah.
What?
I've got a few questions.
Prove it. Let me see them.
They're right here. I'll read them here really quick. This one's from Ryan
How do we know you're not making these up?
because it's right here, Nate.
Is it actually on the? Is it like a Facebook page?
It's the Facebook page.
Okay,
yeah.
all right,
All right.
let's
This
do
one's
this.
from Ryan. What will Langford be when he gets back from his injury? With Jordan Howard playing well like he did last week, what is
Nate's
Langford?
got an answer for this one.
Why are we talking about the Chicago Bears?
It's
Yeah.
fantasy
Suck.
football.
Oh,
Fantasy
for
foot-
fantasy
yeah, for
oh.
fantasy football.
You should have just told us that. Yeah, he's a decent plug and chug option, I guess. If you're starting Jordan Howard, your team probably sucks and you haven't won a game yet. So you might as well just light your computer on fire and throw it in the lake. Sorry.
But
That's all I got.
but once Langford comes back, does Howard stay as the main back, or does Langford instantly gain his starting job back?
I can see the Bears going running back by committee, and so Langford and Ryan are going to combine for like 80 yards a game. So I'm with Nate. Get those lighters ready, folks. You drafted Jeremy Langford.
Move on to the next question.
Next
please.
question from Ryan.
Still Ryan.
Another Ryan. This
Oh,
one's from
okay,
Ryan
okay.
Berry. What are Doug Martin and Jonathan Stewart worth in a 10-team standard league?
Doug Martin is worth nothing.
That's why I
Jonathan
traded
Stewart is worth like 2 nothings. So
I still have Jonathan
how many
Stewart.
how many teams are in this league? How does this guy end up with 2 terrible running backs like that?
I mean, Martin's a 3rd-round pick, and Stewart's like a 4th-round pick.
Well, I mean, Jonathan Stewart, he's a little bit washed up. Doug Martin, he's hurt. It's not like anybody's going to want to trade for a hurt running
Yep.
back.
But
Next question.
Last question from Luke. What running back will be the lead running back in Baltimore?
Why is it all these running backs?
What is
Can you
up
give
with
us
all
a
these?
non-running back question, or are those the only 3 we have?
Those are the only 3 questions
oh,
we have.
shoot.
Hey, I'm sorry to all of our listeners, but your questions suck. Come on, give us some interesting stuff. We don't care about this crap. Come on.
This is the stuff that fantasy players actually listen to, though, because they got to know who to pick up on the waiver wire.
Why are they going to listen to us? We don't know anything.
Yeah, what the heck?
I'm pretty sure Bomani Jones as terrible as he is, would be a better reference for fantasy football than us, Mason.
You're
That's how
probably
bad this
right,
is.
but we got questions. We got to answer them. We got to please the fans.
No, we don't.
Who's the lead
This is
running
for
back?
us, not them.
Well, it was Justin Forsett. I don't even because
But no.
they just cut him.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Like Joe
Ray
Flacco,
Rice.
is he their
Ray
lead runner?
Ray Rice.
So the running backs have been terrible this year. Lamar Miller is my first running back. He gets me like 8 points a week, and somehow he's fourth in the league in rushing yards. If you're relying on running backs to win you fantasy games, you need to rethink your strategy there. What's his name?
Luke.
If you're listening to me, I'm going to give you a completely honest opinion. Quit fantasy football. Maybe the rest of your team is great. I don't know, but you need to quit fantasy football.
In all honesty, though, I think that Kenneth Dixon is probably going to be the lead running back in Baltimore. Obviously, like you said, they cut Justin Forsett for the second time this season, and he's not coming back this time.
It's kind of like a bad breakup.
But Kenneth Dixon, if you haven't picked him up already, and he's still out there, go pick up Kenneth Dixon because he's probably going to be the lead Baltimore running back.
I think it all begs the question: how long until Taylor Swift writes a song about the situation
About Justin Forsett.
About Justin Forsett. Yeah.
And on that note, we're going to go ahead and wrap up our show before it can fall any farther into the pit of despair. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. We'll have more episodes for you coming up in the upcoming weeks. We'll break down more NFL, more college football, and more postseason baseball since that's coming up. That'll be me and Mason and not the other two guys.
I know everything.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Rational Fans. Stay rational, my friends.